Coming up now on your spoiler-free wrestling news rundown, Matt Riddle's comments about Roman Reigns has ruffled a few feathers backstage in WWE. We have more on just what went on between Nia Jax and Charlotte Flair on Raw this week, and Britt Baker is not planning on walking through any forbidden doors anytime soon. All that and more coming up now on your spoiler-free wrestling news rundown. This is just a reminder that we omit any news or information which could potentially spoil the results, angles, storylines, or surprise debuts taking place in professional wrestling. If you appreciate this type of wrestling coverage, please consider subscribing, clicking the notifications bell, and sharing this video with friends. The wrestling world is mourning the loss of former WCW and TNA star Daphne, who passed away at the age of 46. When we put out our news rundown video yesterday, word had not yet spread regarding Daphne's passing. However, later that afternoon, Shimmer posted the following message on Twitter at the behest of Daphne's family, letting fans know that Daphne has indeed passed away. Numerous people from around the wrestling world, as well as various wrestling promotions, have been paying tribute to Daphne online. AEW posted to Twitter, WWE posted an article about Daphne's passing, and Impact Wrestling dedicated last night's episode to Daphne as well. The television ratings are in for this week's edition of AEW Dynamite on TNT, and this is according to Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics. He noted that AEW was viewed by 1,047,000 viewers on average. 486,000 were aged 18 to 49, so in the key demographic, that's good for a .38 in the key demo. He also noted that AEW was ranked number 1 on cable in 18 to 49 among originals, edging out Real Housewives on Bravo, according to Showbuzz Daily. Now up on your screen is the 10-week average, and this is posted by the Wrestling Observer. And you can see that 10-week average now is up over 1 million for AEW Dynamite and a .39 in the key demographic. So those are your ratings this week for AEW Dynamite. In a previous video, we noted that Matt Riddle had some fairly interesting comments about Roman Reigns during an interview with the Bleacher Report. Well, we now have an update on how those comments were received backstage in WWE. Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter wrote about the reaction to Riddle's comments. Here is what he had to say. Meltzer wrote, "There was a lot of heat in certain circles on Riddle for comments on Bleacher Report on Reigns. This was definitely not storyline related. It was very much considered a negative by many, with the basic theme that Riddle is incredibly talented, more so than he gets credit for, but he's not very astute politically in the WWE jungle." If you missed it, here's a little bit about what Riddle said about Roman Reigns recently. Riddle said, "When he's saying acknowledge me or I move the needle, no you don't. You're related to The Rock. Shut up, like I'm not impressed. I can beat you up in a real fight, so shut your mouth. You're not moving needles, I'm the real stallion. RK Bro is moving the merch. We're moving the needle, and that's it. I don't want to say too much, I'm not trying to get in trouble. Hey, hats off to him, he's amazing at what he does. I do like what he does, but at the same time, it's like, get off your high horse. You're in that spot for a reason. You're not a bro, you're second generation, I'm first generation." Well, it turns out these comments ruffled a few feathers backstage in WWE. On the news rundown video we posted on Tuesday, we spoke about how a match between Charlotte Flair and Nia Jax on this week's edition of Raw appeared to break down, and both competitors seemed as though they were taking some legitimate-looking shots at one another. This match was addressed recently by WWE producer and WWE Hall of Famer Devon Dudley, who spoke about what went down during this controversial match on Raw this week. Here is what Devon Dudley had to say on the Table Talk podcast. Dudley said, "A lot of people suspect Nia and Charlotte got into it heavy. I even heard some reports that they were beating each other up in the back. Number one, they weren't beating each other up in the back. Something happened in the ring, they handled it the way they handled it, and they got over it. It's as simple as that. They got over it. Were things done in the ring? I think it's obvious. No dirt sheet writer can put me on blast and go, well, Devon said, no, everybody saw what happened this past Monday. It got a little rough. It happens. It's not the first time it happened, but of course, everyone is making a big deal out of it. There have been even more reports come out recently regarding Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard's role with the NXT brand. There had been some reports out there that some people were under the belief that Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard would be serving as the producers of the weekly television series. However, according to a report from the Wrestling Observer newsletter, a meeting was held backstage recently to refute these reports. Here is what Meltzer wrote. He said, there was a meeting with talent and staff where they were told the stories of McMahon and Pritchard directly producing the weekly television show is incorrect. Meltzer would continue to say that Pritchard and McMahon are too busy to take on such a role, but major decisions regarding the brand will now be made by upper WWE management. This includes the rebrand of NXT, roster cuts, as well as which wrestlers get pushed and protected and which wrestlers do not. Meltzer continued, the new logo came from WWE with no input from the NXT people, and it's when it comes to the future of NXT and its rebranding, it said the people making the decision on their own are the likes of Vince McMahon, Nick Khan, John Laurinaitis, Kevin Dunn, and Bruce Pritchard. He also continued to write, like with the cuts, all the major decisions as far as marketing, direction of the brand, and promotion of the brand are all being made outside the NXT circle. So that's the latest update regarding Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard's increasing role in NXT. While this definitely is not the most important news update, Carl Anderson is getting a little bit of heat online for some of his online comments. Particularly, Anderson responded to a tweet that noted that WWE had sent out a message to talent today, noting that they provide counseling services if they are in need of help. Anderson, who of course had a very contentious falling out with WWE a little over a year ago, he just responded to say, they suck, bro. And many fans on Twitter or other social media apps were upset with Anderson regarding the timing of his comments. They were attacking him online. Anderson, who is somewhat prone to impulsive tweeting, was responding to many of them, and some of those messages are up on your screen now. Anderson would eventually conclude that it must be a slow Pinooze night. In a segment on AEW Dynamite this week, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, said that she had signed a new contract with AEW. Well, according to a report from Fightful, that's actually true, and Baker has signed a new deal with the promotion, although details regarding the length of the deal have not been disclosed. Baker also made some comments at Planet Comic Con recently that have made some headlines. She noted that despite the forbidden door in wrestling currently, she says that anyone who wants to face her is going to have to come to AEW. Here's what she had to say. I'm not going anywhere because I'm in the hottest professional wrestling company on the planet. I don't need to go anywhere. They can come here and that's fine, but I have no desire to go anywhere because they can all come to us. Everyone has their own different path. I'm the baddest on the block in AEW, and again, if they want to come to me, I welcome them all with open arms. Please step foot in my ring. And the last thing we're going to cover in this video is lineups for upcoming shows, starting with tonight's episode of WWE SmackDown, which will be held in the VyStar Veterans Memorial Arena in Jacksonville, Florida. Here is what WWE is advertising for the show. We've got Cesaro going one-on-one with Seth Rollins. The Usos are going to take on the Street Profits in a championship contenders match. And in the main event for the Universal Championship, Finn Balor is going to challenge Roman Reigns. Then at 10 o'clock from the Now Arena just outside of Chicago, we will have a live edition of AEW Rampage. Here is what is scheduled for that show. Malachi Black is going to take on Lee Johnson. In a match booked by Dr. Britt Baker, Chris Statlander will face Jamie Hayter and Rebel in a handicap match. And Danny Garcia will take on Darby Allin with CM Punk on commentary. Then this weekend, AEW will present All Out, one of the most anticipated pay-per-views of the year. Here is what is scheduled for that. There has been a new 10-man tag team match added to the buy-in event after the Women's Casino Battle Royale was moved to the main show, following the removal of Andrade El Idolo versus Pac, as Tony Khan stated that due to travel issues, the match between Andrade El Idolo and Pac will take place on a future edition of Rampage. So the new match added to the buy-in will feature the Best Friends teaming up with Jurassic Express to take on the Hardy Family Office. And then on the main pay-per-view, we will have the 21-woman Casino Battle Royale. We will have Jon Moxley versus Satoshi Kojima. Paul White will return to the ring and he'll take on QT Marshall. In a match that carries the stipulation that if Jericho loses, he must retire from in-ring competition in AEW, Chris Jericho will take on Maxwell Jacob Friedman. For the TNT Championship, Miro will defend against Eddie Kingston. In a steel cage match for the AEW World Tag Team titles, the Young Bucks will defend against the Lucha Bros. For the AEW Women's World title, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, will defend against Chris Statlander. In his first match back in over 7.5 years, CM Punk will take on Darby Allin, and for the AEW World Championship, Kenny Omega will defend against Christian Cage. And with that, you are completely up to date on everything making headlines in the world of professional wrestling, minus anything which could potentially spoil future storylines, angles, match results, or surprise debuts for you. I'm your host, Gentleman Ian, for Spoiler Free Wrestling.